Alrighty, took a few moments to pause and to breathe a bit, to hug this tree for a little bit. I enjoy hugging trees. And now to chat, share my thoughts that I have been censoring from myself, or censoring sharing to others. My thoughts on some of the thoughts on COVID regulations or preventative measures or whatever terms they're called. During COVID, I was in India for 13 of the months that I was in India was during COVID. And then I was India and the United States, then in Uganda, South Africa, Kenya, then Mexico, United States, Montenegro, Albania, North Macedonia, Kosovo, Moldova, Transnistria, Holland, and a few places on like layovers. So however many that is in US, and now Portugal and Spain. However many countries that is. I've been in a decent amount of countries during COVID, and I've seen things done in different ways. I've had dozens of flights during COVID. I was in trains in the middle of Mumbai when in the middle of the surge that India experienced around this time last year. Many trains and buses during COVID in India. And I was having an audio message conversation with a friend just yesterday, or it had been over a period of days or weeks, and I was talking about how I don't agree currently with how, I'm not sure if it still is, when we left Portugal 10 days or a week ago or whatever, it was still mandatory masks inside of buildings or inside, And I was sharing with this friend how I find it to be very bad or unhealthy sign, because this is now 2 years in, and we have large amount of scientific data from all over the world for multiple years, billions of data points demonstrating what we know about COVID. So the science, it's not like this is some new, we never had viruses before. We don't know about how to study them, or we don't see similarities with other viruses. Yeah, this may be a different one. It may be man-made, which I haven't gone, like I said, I don't read the news. I don't go into conspiracy theories, but I don't appreciate the term conspiracy theory, because it's, especially with COVID, it seems like it's bandied about as if anything that anyone says that is against the current narrative, which is put out by people who make money off of us. The media is not a non-profit business, and it's not neutral. Whatever media that you want to say, it doesn't matter if it's the mainstream media or if it's people on YouTube who are getting ad revenue or whatever. And that's one reason why I make my videos with no ads, because I'm not interested in using someone else's time, even if it's a few seconds that they could be using. And I'm not interested in it there being any question of, am I doing this in some reason other than just I'm sharing my thoughts. It's very difficult. Actually, I thought that there were no ads on my YouTubes, and then I just looked at one and it seems there are, so I've got to figure out how to shut it off. I thought I had it shut off, but they don't make it easy because they want that money. But yes, so I was saying that I find it to be a negative harbinger, because by now we know. Like, in the beginning, we didn't know. It's a new thing, the way that it spread around the world. We didn't know who was at risk with it. We didn't know how it spread, that sort of thing. But now we do. And so we know that the vast majority of people in the world who don't have comorbidities, who aren't unhealthy in these certain ways or have these certain risk factors, that they have a very low possibility of having serious issues. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I know people, and I have great empathy and compassion for people who have passed away, who have had people that they love passed away, who have experienced very challenging. I have multiple friends with long COVID, but I have maybe a different experience set than a lot of other people, because, as I said, I've been in many different countries during this, and I have many friends in many more different countries with this. And so we know the scientific studies, they show who's at risk and who is not. And we also know from history. And so for me, with something, they said, well, yeah, to me it's not a big deal. It's just, you're just wearing a piece of cloth on your face. And so if it helps some people, then I'm willing to do it. And I'm very willing to do things that assist other people. But if we're doing something just because government or some group is telling us to do it, even though most people don't actually believe that it's having any benefit, because they're right, because most people aren't at risk, then that means we're just doing something that we don't agree with, and we're just doing it because we're told to do that. And that, to me, is dangerous, because we have many, many examples throughout history in all different sorts of countries, whether we're talking about colonizing countries, or we're talking about countries in Africa, or we're talking about Cambodia, or we're talking about throughout history, where people do things that harm other people. Most people don't believe in it. Most people don't agree with it. But these things get built upon themselves, so you get used to saying, well, this is what everyone else is doing. This is what I'm told to do. Yeah, I don't really agree with it, but there's the carrot and the stick, as there was. And I mean, that was one of the clear red flags for me about the situation with COVID in the United States and in other countries. They were doing this thing where different states in the United States, once you got your vaccination, they would put you in a lottery where you could win millions of dollars. In Michigan, there was millions of dollars, and other ones as well. And also at the same time, so that's a carrot, right? Oh, I did not intend that. I did not intend that. But as a carrot. And the stick is, if you don't get the vaccinations, or if you discuss anything other than vaccinations and these other mandatory measures, then you'll be socially outcast. In many countries, you won't be allowed to work. You won't be allowed to participate in the things that humans have evolved to love, which is interacting with other humans, which is being in nature and enjoying the sun, which, by the way, is very great for the immune system. All of those things that I just mentioned. And so it's the carrot and the stick that, to me, raises flags. Am I interested in even sacrificing some of my things to help others? Absolutely. I am, and I do it every day. I'm very happy to do that. But I'm not willing to do that if it's not really real. And I don't mean COVID's not real. Like I said, I know people. I've been around many different people with COVID in different ways. I had COVID. My grandmother, 97 years old, had COVID, almost passed away. My mother, my sister, maybe my brother, and I have multiple friends with it, so I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm saying the way that we're going about this, still, after having billions and billions of data points, after the Israel study showing very clearly that natural immunity was like 8 times stronger than the vaccinations and lasts longer. And we're still pretending as if vaccinations are the only way. We have ginger, we have ginseng, we have turmeric, we have garlic, we have things that we know and we have known since time immemorial, before recorded history. We know that they have strong antiviral capabilities. We know that being in sunlight, that getting physical exercise, just movement, that being in strong social connections, that these things boost our immune system. Strong sleep. I have nothing against vaccinations, and having been in the military, I had to get some vaccinations recently to go to Africa, and I printed out my list of vaccinations. It's like 10 pages long. Literally, it's like 10 pages long. I've had all kinds of vaccinations, and I have nothing against them. Currently, where I'm at right now, I'm about doing things naturally, and so I weigh the information and I determine how do I feel, both about my ability to strengthen my own immune system, to just strengthen my psychological, not based in fear. As I've mentioned multiple times, I haven't watched the news or had the news app or anything since 2018. You can guess there's been a lot of negativity and anxiety and stress and fear that I haven't had in my life, just based off of that simple decision. And it's very clear. I mean, do a basic Google search connecting stress or fear with low immune system. These things are not new. So I don't have anything against vaccinations per se, but the way that they've been gone about, which is saying this is the only solution that we have. One, we need to wait. Let's all stay indoors, away from the sun, away from physical activity, away from our friends and family, away from the activities that we generally do. And in situations such as watching a bunch of Netflix, which generally connects to using substances like alcohol, which is terrible for the immune system, smoking, very bad for the immune system, processed foods, horrible for the immune system. These are known. So everyone needs to stay inside and do these things that are harmful to the immune system while not doing the things that are beneficial to the immune system. And instead of the government or the local government or the media or the movies or whatever sharing all of the innumerable resources about how people can strengthen their immune systems and how they can, if they're unhealthy, if they have comorbidities, how they can heal that. It's very possible to heal diabetes. It's very possible. I know people who have done it. I have friends right now who are healing Lyme disease naturally. Lyme disease is brutal. It's like COVID, is like a shadow. And I have people and friends, a handful, who are healing Lyme disease. I have friends who have healed long COVID using natural ways, through fasting, through natural foods and things of this sort. These things are known. And yet, is that shared? No, what is shared is, it doesn't matter. It's on TV, it's on the news, it's on the doggone Google Maps. It's saying, here's how to get your vaccination. It's not saying anything else. I don't support that. It's not even saying, for example, there's a wonderful book out there. The name is Why We Sleep. And for the Western perspective on sleep and its importance, it takes decades and decades of many different studies in the US and other places about sleep and about all different sorts of things. Really incredible. By the way, one fact, as a woman, if you drink even one glass of wine while pregnant or while nursing, because alcohol goes through the blood and the milk, the infant or the unborn baby's heart rate goes from something like 200 something beats a minute to like in the low double digits. Alcohol is no joke for a small child And guess what? If it's harmful for a small child, we don't just change. But there's this wonderful book, Why We Sleep. And he takes all these studies, but he writes it in a very interesting way, and it touches on all different sorts of things. Really wonderful to help understand how to learn better. You can incorporate the information that he shares. I have with how we learn, how we store memories in the long-term memory after taking naps or things like that, or when we're studying, when we're learning, when we're doing very mentally heavy things to then subsequently sleep, because during deep sleep is when the brain cleanses out the toxins and the waste that occur just naturally when we're thinking a lot. The brain is using energy, uses the highest amount of energy of any organ in the body, in my understanding. So he also shares, and I read this years ago, I read this long before COVID. I read it like in 2018, I believe. Very well-known, decades-old studies that show that having solid sleep before getting the flu vaccine increased the efficacy meaning increased the success, the ability, the power of the flu vaccine and subsequent likelihood or unlikelihood of getting sick from flu, increased it like hundreds of %, like multiple times, just by making sure you get a good amount of sleep the night before. Just get 8 hours of sleep, don't smoke cannabis, don't drink alcohol, have no light in the room, be quiet, get that good sleep, and go get your shot. And was that talked about for the COVID vaccinations? This basic, it's even supporting the vaccination. Was that talked about? This is known. This is known for decades. So no, I don't support the way that this has been gone about, and I have not supported it. Initially, I was like, this is as new to me as to everyone else, and I have no idea. But I was in India, and I was observing how we had a 3-month nationwide lockdown in India. And it was pretty intense for people in the cities especially. Thankfully, I was in nature. And so I would go out every day and I would walk. And for me, it was a very powerful experience to have that time. But it still brought up challenges and things. But then after 3 months, in June of 2020-ish, most everything was open in India. And it was pretty back to normal. We were having gatherings. We were doing things together in cities and out in nature. We were going to the stores. We were doing whatever. Even in the beginning of 2021, there was a Kumbh Mela, which is generally the largest gathering of human beings on earth. It's a religious experience that occurs in 4 different locations every 3 years. So it's that same location once every 12 years. And it was smaller than normal, but there were still multiple millions of people there. And I was there. I recorded a video, and it's back on my videos from beginning of 2021. And we were not wearing masks. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying that it existed. Now, clearly also, when one of the variants occurred in India in the spring of 2021, there was a period of very high spikes, and many people died. Many people got very sick. I'm not denying that this happened. But the majority of the time, and including now, and I was with people who are living on the streets in Kolkata, one of the largest cities in the world, many, many, many people bustling through there. And the challenges that they were talking about were people starving to death because they're not able to work, because the borders are closed, and because of the lockdowns. And when I'm in Uganda and I'm asking the people, who do you know more of? People that have died from COVID or people who have died from starvation? And they say every person that I talked to, except maybe one, said starvation. Now that's something that in the West, people don't have to deal with. just a different experience. It's not even fair or unfair, it's just a different experience. But when you don't experience it, you don't realize that it's happening. And so these sorts of things, they don't seem like that big of a deal. But to me, yeah, I just don't support it. So now we're talking about, this is not that big of a deal to just keep having the masks, even though most people don't believe that masks is really doing anything. Most people aren't actually taking it seriously. In my understanding of the studies, and I'll share some resources, I believe that we know of 0 young people who have died under the age of 17, or maybe it's 4 to 17 or something, I'm not sure, who have died from COVID, who were healthy, who didn't have some sort of comorbidity. And yet we are having those children wear masks every day, which, one, most people don't know how to actually breathe. Most people don't even know that it's possible to breathe in different ways than they already do. Most people have never heard of the term breath work or anything like that, haven't heard of Wim Hof breathing or alternate nostril breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, or understand the benefits of breathing through the nose versus the mouth or anything like this. Most people don't understand breathing. And so most people hyperventilate. It's just a commonly known thing in Western, especially societies with lots of stress. They hyperventilate. And so they're doing that into a mask, and it's unhealthy. It's just not healthy. It's not beneficial. So these children are having that. Now, is that impact as strong as if everyone was at risk for COVID? No. And so they need to wear masks. Yeah, wear a mask. I mean, it's not going to be beneficial for the breathing, but if it's going to save your life, absolutely, sweet, do that. But these children, they're not at risk for it. And so instead, what they're being taught is just the next step in what most all of us have been taught, which is some form of learned helplessness, which is some sort of fear-based decision-making of be afraid of whatever it is. Instead of believing in your own innate power, instead of hearing stories and talking about people who heal from cancer, who heal from viruses, who heal from all kinds of wounds and damage, instead of talking about those sorts of things, talk about how dangerous it is, and talk about how the only way for your hope of survival is by doing something that people make billions of dollars off of. The healthcare industry and the pharmaceutical industry are 2 of the largest industries in the world. And a big reason for that is because of the United States, because the United States has the most expensive healthcare in the world. That doesn't make sense if we're to believe that technology and our medical understanding are at the forefront. Then it wouldn't be the most expensive, because we would be solving health issues. And when you solve something, it doesn't cost any more. It doesn't perpetuate. But we're not good at that. We have very strong technology. We have incredible technology. But we're not very good in the US and in the West, in the allopathic medical system, of actually healing issues and having them say, goodbye, I'm now stronger. We're not very good at that. So to raise these children and to reinforce in the adults that we're weak, we need to be afraid of this thing that doesn't actually have almost any likelihood of impacting us if we maintain the natural, free, healthy ways of living. To me, it's the same as like giving bulletproof vests to all the different children here. Just give them all bulletproof vests and say, yeah, there's danger that you could get shot. Because it's true, there is danger that you could get shot. And in some places that danger is a little higher than others. But what's the likelihood of them getting shot? In Syria, in Ukraine, in Yemen, let's give the children bulletproof vests if they're in a place where they have that potential. Let's protect them. Let's help them, while we also share empowering information and ways of living. But we don't give bulletproof vests to children in the middle of Sevilla, Spain, because what does that do? That incorporates fear into their life, and it incorporates viewing the other as a threat. So when you're walking around wearing a mask, if we're doing it in a culture I'm all about, I work every day to continue co-creating with others, cultures where we take care of ourselves, and so we subsequently take care of others and the society at large. And so we create a society where the cultural values, I won't steal from someone, I won't hurt someone, I won't make food that has toxic ingredients in it just to make money. I won't pollute, because I know when I do those things, I'm harming myself. I harm myself because I'm harming other people, and we are all connected, and what harms you harms me, and vice versa. So I'm all about that. And so if I know that I have any sort of illness, but in this case, if we're talking about COVID, if I know that, then I'm going to separate myself, and I'm going to take precautionary measures. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to ensure that I'm not spreading potential harm to other people. But to me, mandatory rules like this is the opposite of creating society like that. To create society like that, we need to deepen our connection with each other. We need to deepen our relationships with each other by acknowledging that we are the same, that we are all special, we are all wonderful. None of us have any greater or lesser value than the other, and that we can't do anything without anyone else. We're all connected. We can't do it by ourselves. There's no such thing as a self-made man or woman. But when we say mandatory, we all need to wear masks, it's not people doing it because they care about the other person and they want to prevent sharing. They're doing it because they see other people as a threat, because we're told that other person is a threat, and so we need to wear the mask. That's the opposite of creating that. It's creating division. So those are some of my thoughts. Let's see, these conversations, they're so big, and I don't generally take notes about what to talk about. So let me see if there's something more that I would like to talk about, because this is such a big topic. I can share being in different countries. I have friends, people that I know, that I interact with first person. People who are Ayurvedic doctors in India who have been treating COVID the whole time, including for themselves and their family when they had COVID, treating it with natural means. And these people were told by the government authorities, who they know, that they could not do studies with these medicines because these are natural medicines, they're inexpensive medicines. They were told, no, we will not do studies with this. I know people in Uganda and in Kenya who have family members who use natural healing methods, and they were told the same. They were afraid of being put in prison because they were not allowed, or they were told that they could not do it. The president in Uganda, he began looking into alternative methods outside of just the pharmaceuticals or the vaccinations. These countries have much lower incidences of severe illness and death than in the Western countries. We have information about this. There are, how many doctors in the United States or in the UK or in Australia have been demonized online, in the media, in whatever, because they just ask questions. This is not the way that we do things. And when that is occurring, to me, it raises red flags. Again, I'm not saying COVID doesn't exist, it exists. I'm not saying that vaccinations cannot be beneficial, they can. I'm not saying that pharmaceuticals cannot be beneficial. Probably in certain situations, yeah, pharmaceuticals can be beneficial. But if we're at a place where we are ostracizing certain groups of people, look at the regulations. I have friends in France. I have friends in Germany. Now, I haven't been in either of those places during this time, and I'm not really interested to. I was talking to a friend several months ago who's in France, and she's, as most people, has gotten vaccinations, but she was saying that they just passed regulations to where people who were not vaccinated could not go anywhere except the hospital. And people are not, I mean, I didn't follow what happened in Canada with the truckers, but it seemed like a big deal. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like people are talking about this sort of thing. And that, to me, just because that group of people does not have the name Jew or African or whatever other more cohesive group of people who have been attacked or harmed or ostracized or prejudiced against, to me it's no different. If you look up the definition of apartheid, it talks about the, social, political, and economic, whatever the word is, ostracization, I'm not remembering it. Social, political, and economic. Now this occurred in South Africa. But what is happening in these countries? These are people who pay their taxes, and they're not allowed to use the places that they pay the taxes for. These are people who are being told that they're not allowed to have basic human rights. It is a human right to be in nature. God, whomever God is to you, Allah, energy, the universe, Shiva, whomever, whatever, this is created for free for us. And those people are being told, hey, because you feel uncomfortable about injecting yourself with a technology that is untested. And no, I don't accept that you say, oh, well, this is technology that's been around since whatever it was, the 70s or whatever, or 90s or something about mRNA. It is the first time that they ever used it on humans was when they gave it to billions of people around the world. That's untested. And if you want to do it, absolutely, go right ahead. And if you feel comfortable with it, sweet. I have nothing against you. I'm not going to make fun of you or anything like that. But in any other situation where it didn't have all of this political and huge trillions of dollars of money behind it, trillions of dollars of money. I mean, when was the last time that this much money was made by this few people? Afghanistan, Iraq wars is small compared to this. Is the whole world. Tons of money behind it. If there was any other situations where we said, hey, all of you need to do this untested thing, which I just had a friend today message me, and this is a man that I haven't talked to in a long time, and my understanding, he's a proponent of vaccinations, and he just messaged me today, and he said during COVID, he has been with his father a large amount of the time, the family, because his father, after his vaccination, had a stroke. These are known things. I'm not saying everyone does it. I'm not saying the risks do or do not outweigh it. It's not for me to decide for anyone else. I just make my own decisions. I have a friend who's, in my understanding, a strong proponent of vaccination. And he shared on Facebook some months ago that he felt very uncomfortable sharing it because all of this has been turned into this ostracization and attack. Because even though he is a proponent of the vaccinations, he has been having for months, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was weeks, it's been some months ago, but I believe it was months, he has been having hives breaking out. It's been very challenging for him. And then he had multiple people on that post responding in the affirmative. And this is a man who supports it. And he's a strong man. Like, he's a man who follows his truth and lives in ways, that feel true to him. And he's uncomfortable sharing that to his friends on Facebook because he's afraid that he will be labeled as some sort of whatever the anti-vaxxer or whatever the term is that people use to try and ignore reality of situations, I have a friend, the daughter of one of my childhood friends, a small town, and she had the first vaccine. She's in her teens. One of the people that I said is in that age group where, to the best of my understanding, no one has died in the world that has not had some sort of comorbidity. She's in that group, the ones that are being pushed on, hey, yeah, you should get all of your little children vaccinated with this untested thing. And she went to the hospital the first time. She had to go to the hospital because she almost died. I'm not saying this happens everywhere, and I'm not saying that the risks or do not outweigh it, like I said, but this happens. And for people to be afraid of acknowledging this and sharing their truth about what is happening to them, there's something wrong with the way that this is being gone about. And people can, if you want, stop and think about it instead of just going with, this is what I believe because I get my identity from tying it on to different issues and from feeling righteous that I am fighting the ignorance of others. That's ignorance. That is ignorance. Not thinking about things, not making your own decisions, not doing your own research, not looking to the past. We have hundreds of years of recorded history about viruses and about all of these things. That's ignorance. It's ignorance to attack other people for their beliefs. It doesn't matter their beliefs. It's ignorance. There's not a time that I'm aware of where attacking someone for their belief has brought about positivity. So anywho, I think that covers a lot of what I was sharing. I had thinking to share. And being in these other countries outside of the West and outside of the United States, it's been really eye-opening in so many different ways. But just observing like what people in the United States, in the UK, in Australia, in the Western countries, these are the countries that currently have the most amount of financial and global power. Now, these things all change, and clearly we're in some periods of shifts in general, like things are changing. So at other times, it's been other parts of the world, but this is currently where it is. And so these are the countries that people look to when they make their decisions. Governments look to these countries because they know that if they don't, then they'll have economic or military issues. They won't be able to do trade or whatever. People in the general populace, they look to them because last year I'm in Montenegro and I turn on the TV. Montenegro, how many of you know even where Montenegro is? It's a small country in the Balkans. They don't speak, English is not their first language. Turn on the TV, and out of 20 or so channels of shows and movies, like 17 of them are American shows and movies. So these are the people, this is what people are believing. Whatever it is that people in the US and in these countries are doing and saying are important, that is going out to the rest of the world. And so when this ignorance is going out about, we just make our decisions based off of whatever group that I currently identify with without thinking about it and without practicing any sort of grace and acceptance, just demonizing someone who thinks otherwise, this is the information that the rest of the world is getting. And it's very harmful. So yes, it does matter what you watch on Netflix. Yes, it does matter what you watch on TV. I think it's so interesting, and honestly, it makes me laugh because so many people were so upset that Donald Trump was a president. And I did not support him at all, didn't vote for him. I don't support any of the policies that I'm aware of currently. There probably are some, because I think anything is possible, and also who knows what the real story was, but I didn't support Donald Trump. But I also didn't watch The Apprentice. Oh yeah, well that doesn't matter, I just like watching this because it's funny or whatever. Yeah, well how many people who were upset that Donald Trump was president were people who watched The Apprentice? Because we know from his tax records that before The Apprentice came out, he was broke and he could not have run for office. And then The Apprentice came out and people support it through watching, which gives money to the things that they watch. And so he subsequently got a lot of money and was able to finance his political campaign and become president of the United States of America that impacted billions of people around the world. So if you don't think that your actions have results just because it's not a big deal, I just want to chill and laugh. If you think it's funny when someone's making fun of someone in the microcosm, but you don't think it's funny when it's happening to you in the macrocosm, maybe don't support it in the microcosm. Much love.